Good evening, everyone. How are you? It is good to see you, and it is good to be seen by you. Sorry for a little bit of lateness there, guys. I was just taking care of some business. Anyway, it is I, Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you live, loud and clear on a Thursday evening. And Thursdays is just one of those things that I think some of us can't always get the hang of. Hey! Hi, how are you? It's good to see you all. Jonathan Palmer, James Seymour, Robert Phillips, Yang Yanzhao, Josh Butler. How are you? How are you? I'm glad you're all here. Welcome to the show, everybody. And let me ask you a favor. I'm like right out of the gate, I'm making demands. It's awful of me. If you haven't already, if you're just stopping by, if you don't know what it is that we get up to around here, we have some fun. We have a lot of fun around this place. If you haven't, would you please consider clicking the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications to find out about all the fun things it is that we do around here. So that way you can know about all the times when I'm running late, when I'm running a few minutes late. Good evening to you, Damien X247. But no, what I like to do, guys, what I like to do is I like to bring you guys old school goodness a lot of the times. I like to have some fun with with old school TTRPGs, and none to me is more fun than classic Dungeons and Dragons, advanced Dungeons and Dragons, if you will. I'm not going to do that tonight, James, but we can, you know what? I'll have Jack on one of these nights, and I'll have Mr. Photon as a guest, and we can go over it together. We can have a lot of fun with those things. That's a good idea, James. I really appreciate that. But I'm going to tell you guys, last night I talked about the upcoming GWOC. That's right. The great underground online gaming convention that is happening in May. This is not my new one, Josh. This is an old one. This is the first Magnum PI official. My wife got me a new one, which is, I wore it last night. I wore that one last night. Mini Chest, good to see you. But let's see when we can do this. March, April, May. How about, guys, I am feeling, let's aim for Thursday the 22nd to Sunday the 25th is when we're going to do the GWOC. Thursday the 22nd to Sunday the 25th of May 2025. And we'll have a lot of fun. We'll have a lot of fun at the GWOC. And what is the GWOC, you may ask? Again, the Great Underground Online Gaming Convention. It is 100% free. Now, I know I was mauling last night about, oh no, I'm gonna have to use. No, it's not, James. Memorial Day is the next weekend. Memorial Day is the next weekend. I'm going to have to use a service that's going to cost money, and you guys are going to have to pay a few bucks a badge. I was talking to Doomsword. Doomsword gets the nod tonight, the shout out, because guess what? There is an events scheduling Discord bot, and all I need to do is drop it into the GWOC Discord, and DMs can access it and schedule their games with it. I got to look at the particulars. I got to look at the how-tos. I got Mini Chest. Absolutely. If you want to sign up as a DM for the GWOC, absolutely. I'm going to activate that real soon. And according to Dooms, you will be able to see who's in your game. Other people can see who's in your game and what your game is. It seems to be a darn good scheduler. I'm also going to set up a beer fund donation bot in the Guac thing. So if you guys want to donate to the Guac beer fund, you can, but you don't have to. And possibly even a merch vendor bot. That's right, a merch vendor bot. So you will be able to buy your Guac merch right off the game floor. Think about that. That's going to be real cool, and I'm excited about that. FMCS Recon, good to see you. So I hope you guys are as hyped for the Guac as I am, because things are looking up. I was, like I said, I was confused. I was confused that I might have to somehow charge for badges, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. John D, the General Delver's Dungeon chat Discord link, I will share in a minute. The Guac Discord, there's nothing going on there right now. I mean, that's literally like saying, like asking me right now, what is the address to the event hall? It's like there's nobody in there. So I'm as soon as I get that, I will get going. But John, if you want the chat Discord, let me know. And I will share that out here with you guys. But we have some fun in a bun scheduled for tonight. Yes, we do. It is something that I like. Okay. Full confession time. I have said before that when I got into D&D back in 1881, yes, I'm that old. When I got into D&D back in the day, that all I had was a copy of Keep on the Borderlands and some dice. It's not entirely true. And I have mentioned it before, but just in case you were curious. My first D&D purchase actually consisted of a copy of Keep on the Borderlands, some Dragon Dice, and also a box of Grenadier miniatures. The Paint and Take Heroes set, in fact. And I think I still have one or two of those over here on the Shelf of Glory somewhere. And I know that there are people out there for whom miniatures are anathema. Look, I understand. You, for whatever reason, you don't care for miniatures, and that is completely okay. That is completely okay. There is occasionally a fair bit of pushback from folks who say that D&D is only theater of the mind. They have never used it. I played D&D for 45 years. I've never touched a miniature, or I have one miniature and it's never been painted. You know, it's worn almost smooth and it just sits on a shelf. But I just want to mention, miniatures have always been part of Dungeons and Dragons. You know, the whole people with like, oh, it's plastic cracked. You know, they're selling, Wizards of the Coast, just throw it in minis to do miniatures thing. It's always been a game for use with miniatures. Now, not all of us could afford miniatures. I lucked out in that, again, my folks were kind enough to buy me a small box of miniatures, but also, like, I went into a Circus World. Grenadier had sought to expand out into hobby painting. Like, you just buy miniatures and paint them, not for games or anything. And when TSR had left them high and dry in the very early 1980s, like 82 or so, yes, it's absolutely okay to use acrylic paint for miniatures, Damien. Yeah, don't use enamels. Don't use enamels unless you're used to aircraft paint stripper, fumes and using mineral spirits, which is nasty stuff, as thinner. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could drink acrylic paint. It would taste horrible. But enamel paints is another matter altogether. But to continue my ramble. So yeah, Grenadier kind of did these Pinnacle Products miniatures, and Circus World was blowing them out, and I bought 2 boxes of Pinnacle Products miniatures, and they had like a wizard, a ninja, a few monsters, that sort of thing. Basically, Grenadier AD&D miniatures repacked in another box. So I actually wound up with a fair few metal miniatures when I was a kid, and I always wanted to use them. I always wanted to use minis in my D&D games. Right here on the OD&D set. Can I get this without knocking anything down? Which is next to miniatures, by the way. Right here it says, rules for fantastic medieval war games campaigns playable with paper and pencil and miniature figures. Basic D&D. On like page 2, basic D&D, the Moldvay version, picture of a miniature on the table. Miniatures. With that said, I am not saying you have to use miniatures. I am not saying you have to use minis. But I do think that it brightens the table when you use miniatures. Now, I know you guys might be thinking, that's easier for you to say. You've got thousands of dollars worth of Dwarven Forge. Guys, if you want to use miniatures in your game, it's not, Dwarven Forge isn't necessary. I mean, if you want terrain, some craft paints in brown, gray, and black and white, a Wonder Cutter, and 1-inch insulation foam that you can get for like $10 for 5x3 sheets at Home Depot. And you can craft castles and dungeons and ruins to your heart's content. Okay? You don't need the Dwarven Forge. You can buy a 3D printer for as little as $150. Filaments like $9 or $10 on Amazon. And you can print terrain till the cows come home. But if all of that seems a bit much to you, look, right here. Where is it? Right here. $35 if you want to be a feat. This is a Chessex battle mat. Although it's not my favorite, and I'm going to talk about why. Minis are not a requirement to play D&D. But no minis is not the way D&D was meant to be played. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Robert. So we could, on my upcoming 3D printing channel, I'll get into all the things, all the crafting things you can do to make terrain. But tonight, I want to talk a little bit about the science of using miniatures in first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And to do that, we first need to talk about a matter of scale. Now, if you go on eBay and you search for D&D Grenadier Ralpartha, odds are you can find people selling their minis that they bought when they were kids back in the 80s or even in the mid to late 90s by the pound for not too much money. Occasionally, if you look around in those collections, you can find rarer pieces. So if you're a mini collector or you've got a box set that's missing the Raistlin or whatever, keep an eye out for those kind of sales. I mean, if your Dragonlance set is made complete and then worth $500 because you bought $50 worth of minis, the rest of which are fishing lures, except for that one, I don't know, it's some Dragonlance character here, then you're fine. But you can find cheap metal miniatures on eBay. And bonus still, like if you're not going to enter any of these in the Golden Brush. All right. If they still have a large modicum of paint, you might have to do a little bit of touching up, but then bam, you're done. Pre-painted metal miniatures ready to go. And if you go that route, what you're going to wind up with are a lot of true 25 millimeter miniatures or 28 millimeter miniatures. And why is that important? Well, I'm going to show you guys. I want to move around, and this is awesome because this is going to give me a chance to use the new camera before we game with it. And I want to show you guys something. So bear with me just a minute. Owl, bear with me for just a minute, if you will, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got something set up for you guys. Let me show you this real quick. Let me pull up my control panel. And we'll go to cam 3. And you guys can still hear me. What you are looking at on the screen right now is a set of old school D&D miniatures. I don't know the manufacturers of these, but left to right, we have a human fighter, we have an elf of some kind, we have a dwarf with a spear, and all the way at the end is a gnome. Now, to give that a sense of perspective, each one of these is a 25 millimeter miniature. The gnome that you're looking at is really a little bit shorter, including his base, than a penny. Some of them may be Ralpartha. I'm not 100% sure. I got these all in a set. I love the gnome on the far end. That I can tell you. He's one of 2 gnomes that I got. The other one has a spear. He has a club. So This is about what you can expect to find. And John D says gnomes are fake news. This is about what you can expect to find if you go looking for quote unquote used miniatures online. And again, note the size. Note the size. I'm going to step around there and I'm going to put something out there for scale. I'm going to hold up a ruler or something so you guys can get an idea of scale. Bear with me just a minute. So you can see, you can get a sense of scale on those miniatures. Let's talk a little bit. Bob Jester, one of my favorite ones, 280 millimeters. That's, you know what, Mark, you're right. I don't know about the dwarf, but I know that now that you say the name, I know that the gnome is a heritage mini, and there is somebody out there who still casts them. But anyway, but I want to share something with you guys real quick here. Let me pull this up. And this is from the Dungeon Master's Guide right here. So if we go into the DMG, right here, and this is on page 10, use of miniature figures with the game. The special figures cast for advanced Dungeons and Dragons add color to play and make refereeing far easier. And I'm going to tell you guys, from a DMing perspective, that is absolutely true. It does make DMing easier. Each player might be required to furnish painted figures representing his or her player character, and all henchmen and or hirelings included in the game session. One thing I can tell you guys, I don't know if you believe in curses, but don't paint a miniature until your character has lived long and you are happy with them. Providing a painted miniature for a brand new character is an easy way to ensure that they won't live very long. That's just how fate works. Such distinctively painted figures enable you to immediately recognize each individual involved. Figures can be placed so as to show order of march, i.e. which characters are in the lead, in the middle, and bringing up the rear. Furthermore, players are more readily able to visualize their array and plan actions, etc., etc., etc. And then they start talking, about placements and that on. Be very careful to purchase castings which are in scale. Out of scale monsters are virtually worthless in many cases. I don't know about that, Gary. As a rule of thumb, HO scale is 25 millimeter. 25 millimeters equals 1 actual inch, 6 feet in scale height or length or breadth. Figure bases are necessarily broad in order to assure the figures will stand in the proper position and not constantly be falling over. Because of this, it is usually necessary to use a ground scale twice that of actual scale for HO, and squares of about 1 actual inch per side are suggested. Now, this is important, guys. Exactly, Yang. It's like carrying a picture of your girlfriend in a World War II movie. Yeah, this is Mary Jane. We're going to get married when I get home. Settle down, raise a couple of kids. Pew! Oh, they got me. Tell Mary Jane I love her. You know, that's what happens. Now, here's the thing. You guys noticed that there are Dwarven Forge tiles out there, okay? The Dwarven Forge tiles are 2 inches on a side, And they are meant to represent a D&D, a single D&D square. They cater more to the scale of modern, by which I mean 3rd edition forward, D&D scale, where it's like one square moves forward. Modern battle mats, although you can get them to different size grids, this one is 1 square equals 1 inch. Now, if we follow Gary's admonition, and I actually prefer this, I actually prefer this because the Dungeon Master's Guide states that 3 characters can move down a 10-foot hallway abreast, or 3 can fight abreast in a 10-foot wide space. This battle mat, let me come back to this. This battle mat becomes a lot more difficult to use if we go with 1 inch equals 3 1/3 feet. Because now, instead of 2 inches equals 10, well, 2 inches on here equals 10 feet, but if you crank up that scale, it's 3 inches equals 10 feet. And suddenly the utility of your mat becomes a lot less helpful. So it's a little difficult to use modern grids with old school miniatures. Now, when I'm using Dwarven Forge out here, I will tell the players, and you guys will hear me say this, hey, this is abstracted. 3 of you are fighting side by side in the front rank in these 10-foot wide hallways. And you might say, well, your miniatures are small enough, Bill. You can just ignore the grid and go with that. Here's where we run into a modern problem. And I'm gonna step back over there real quick, and I'm gonna show you guys the problem that we run into. Okay, what I'm about to show you here, and this is where we can run into scale problems. The minis cam is not in the kitchen, it's just right over there. This quartet, these are all Reaper miniatures. Now, one thing you can probably see right off the bat is, first of all, they're standing on bases that are about a 1/16 of an inch high. So our height scale is blown. But left to right on the screen, we have a human, a dwarf, an elf, and a halfling. And you'll note they are much bigger and much chunkier than their counterparts. How much bigger? How much chunkier? Let me show you guys something. Let me demonstrate how much bigger they are. Okay, let's go over and let's check that out real quick. So you can see with the dwarf, it's not too terrible, but with the elf and the halfling next to the gnome and the human next to the human fighter. Now, I want to point out that human fighter is stooped over. He is not fully standing up. He would the our heritage human fighter, his face would be buried just below our reaper human fighter's sternum. So we run into a problem here where if you're a scale stickler, modern miniatures might not work 100% as well as you would like them to. Now I want to show one more thing. I just want to show just a little just a little example. Um, and I'll have to dip over there again. But we were talking about three figures fighting abreast in a 10 by 10 square, and I just happen to have something. And you might be thinking, well, Bill, the dwarven forge is 2 inches. Why not just arrange them on a dwarven forge tile? I just want this to look a little bit clearer. So I have a visual prop here. Hang on a moment. Thank you everyone for the getting up and down. Um, so here we go. So you can see there are our heritage minis in 2 inches equals 10 feet square, fighting three across comfortably. Fighting three across comfortably. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at it with the Reaper miniatures. All right, now take a look at this. You see the problem that you can have with a modern miniature. You see the problem, and the knight in the blue cape is, and I'll show you guys just real quick our scale differences, and I'll put the human fighter next to him instead of the stooped over guy in the cloak. Hang on. Alrighty, let's take a look here. So you can see the size difference. And again, that great helm, his head is like a foot or two under those wings. So when you're playing with miniatures and AD&D, and you're using the AD&D ground scale, using modern miniatures can be a bit of a problem. Now, there's actually hope. Okay, the first is that, again, as I did with with the first miniatures that I showed you guys out there, the heritage miniatures, you track down old school minis. Grenadier, Heritage, Ralpartha, Martian Metals, just you know, and Ralpartha is Iron Wind. Grenadier is now Mirliton miniatures. Now maybe you're not so strident as Gary, and it doesn't matter to you that miniatures have you know they're ridiculously out of scale. You know, the fighter in the blue cloak and the fighter Nate Trues, they're both 6'4", and it just doesn't matter because you're just abstracting out there, and that's fine. That's absolutely okay. If you want to do that, that's awesome. That's awesome. And a lot of times I'll do that. I'll just grab miniatures off the shelf over here and just plunk them down on the table. And there you go. You know, that's it. Oh, you don't like that one? And something else to be, that you should be aware of is not all modern miniatures are like that. So Reaper miniatures are what are called 28 millimeter heroic. They're actually closer to 30 or 32 millimeters by and large. But, for example, and none of this is an endorsement, by the way. I'm not getting paid by any one miniature company or anybody like that. Although if you want to check out a cool vendor of miniatures, down there in the description, of course, we have our sponsor, our affiliate sponsor, I should point out, our lovely friends over at Paint Minis Live store. You can check that out and pick up your paints, your glues, your brushes, your miniatures, your dice, all of your gaming accessories. Check them out. It helps me, it helps the channel, and it helps him out too. Hello, Charles Latora. Good to see you. But I'm trying to think. Dark Sword makes gorgeous, true 25 millimeter scale miniatures. I have a few of them over here. Cyrus Wright, generally I type into Google and I find STLs. And you brought us to a great point. And I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but you can buy old miniatures or you can download through purchase or free STLs, that's stereolithography, 3D print files, and then scale them. You can go into something as simple as Microsoft 3D Editor, which comes free with Windows 10 and 11. It may even be available for download if you're still rocking 8.1, 7. It probably won't run on Vista or XP. But you can scale those miniatures down or up if you're like, that fighter looks cool, but he'd look much cooler as a giant. And then if you don't have a 3D printer, libraries and online printing services will gladly print miniatures for you. So you can go, you can get files, scale them to your need, or you can buy new old school minis. You don't have to use the Reaper Mini. Now, maybe it doesn't matter to you. Maybe you can just say, look, here's a clump of minis. Just imagine they're all shoulder to shoulder. Because I do that sometimes. You know, I want this cool Reaper Mini. I want that cool Reaper Mini. I want the other cool Reaper Mini. Okay. Even though you guys are in a roughly triangular formation, you're all shoulder to shoulder. I hope to launch my videos first week of February, Michael Dale. But that is those are the biggest gotchas. Those are the biggest gotchas, and I don't think that should be a hurdle. Now, something else that I want to talk about, because we've been talking about painting. Everybody right now, who makes Path? Paizo. I blanked out. Paizo sells a line of pre-painted miniatures. WizKids for Wizards of the Coast sell a line of pre-painted miniatures. And again, you can go onto eBay and buy just bags of common miniatures to use in your games. And they're pre-painted. There used to be a few studios, 3 or 4, that sold pre-painted metal miniatures. Holistic, E4M, or was it EM4? I can't remember. And I think you could get some pre-painted miniatures at Mirliton, but I don't otherwise know of any companies that do pre-painted metal miniatures anymore. I think that's too boutique. Yeah, good call, Rory. You can go to gaming conventions and usually find guys that they're. It's like, I don't want to take this stuff home with me. This is going to weigh the van down, and the less stuff I got to cart home, the better. You know, so here's like double handfuls. The first miniature I ever bought at a con. Well, no, that's not true. I bought it, but I did buy a miniature at Milwaukee Game Fest. I wanted something vaguely Magic User looking, and I plucked something out of a bin at it was Crazy Igor's. It was $2. I didn't even want the card. It was a Githzerai or Gith Yankee Monk or something like that. I just wanted a Magic User guy with a dagger so I could set it on the table, and that's what I used. But for painted miniatures now, you have an entire just an embarrassment of riches out there. And the important thing is, remember, Your miniatures only have to look good out here. Guys, nobody cares. Nobody cares what the monster looks like when you've put down a dozen orcs. Hey, Rabovsky, good to see you. Nobody cares what Orc 13 looks like, or Orc 27, or Fighting Man 5. Just slot paint them. And I've shown these off before, and I'll show it off again. Guys, let me demonstrate something. That is a manticore that I originally bought to use in a White Plume Mountain game. And it was the game was on Livestream. Does that meet everyone's requirements for a well-painted manticore? I mean, I hope it does. But I painted this individual one, I painted in about 15 minutes. Because it's a manticore. It's one monster. It's a mid-range, moderately dangerous monster. I literally held on to him by the black base, and I slot painted him. So if you get a bunch of minis printed up, or you buy a bunch of minis, regardless of scale, and they're bad guys, just slot paint them. Don't worry about it. Because odds are your players aren't either. Your players are going to care how good or bad their characters are painted up. Jeff, the greatest dungeon master alive. Has it ever been played as a manticore? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll put it on the table. I've shown it before, but I'll put it on the table if you guys want to see it again. We'll zoom the camera in on him. Classic Miniatures has old heritage. Very nice. Zoom it. You guys, okay. And I can do that. Yeah, FMCS Recon, that's exactly what I did with this guy. He is slot painted. Hang on. All right, I positioned him. Let's see if he'll stay put. There you go. That's a 15-minute paint job. He's showing up a little greener than brown because of the LED lamp that's shining on him. But yeah, that's 15 minutes of work. I painted 3 of them in 45 minutes. Maybe only about 30 minutes. I'm not sure. Yeah. There's not an imperative for you to kill yourself to use miniatures. I guess what I'm saying is, if I can get a little into the weeds on the subject, is I've never understood why a lot of my old school fellows were so dead set against minis. And I think it has a lot to do with D&D minis. I think it ultimately, it's because of Wizards of the Coast D&D minis game. And people gnashed and wailed and gnashed their teeth and wailed and ripped their garments and threw ashes on their heads because, oh my God, you're turning D&D into a mere board game because you're trying to force miniatures onto things. Guys, it was always meant to have miniatures in it. It was always meant to have miniatures in it. Miniatures are fun. They're cool. It doesn't break immersive theater of the mind. Miniatures are neat. Orbital layer, good call. Paper cutouts. You can download those for free. Print them on a little bit of thick cardstock. Little triangle guy. I really like minis. And there are cases, like there have been times with my Monday night game where I'm not, we don't use minis all the time. Primarily, we haven't been using minis because the dungeon halls we've been going through are gigantic. But there are times when if something fits on the tabletop, we have stuff out on the tabletop. And I absolutely have said, guys, hang on a second. And I've grabbed that battle mat, or if there's already Dwarven Forge on the table, I'll rearrange it real quick and just grab some quick minis. Don't fret over who, this fighter has an axe, not a sword. Up, got to find one with a sword. And just said, okay, here's where you're all standing. Does that help? And there's usually a cry of, yes, thank you. Okay, now we know what we can do. Somebody said something up here. Michael Connor. GW and the hyper focus on great paint jobs. You're absolutely right. And you know what's the funniest about that? Go download PDFs of White Dwarf magazine after it became a house organ, but before GW got into like their hyper money mode. Their in-house paint jobs were no better than what I can do. They were absolutely no better. Yeah, Arneson used to dip his minis in paint. Absolutely. When you're talking about soldiers, you can dip, slot paint a few details on, dip in ink, sling it till the ink goes everywhere, or flies off, except for when it's gone down in the corners. That's a little rougher than I like, but you can absolutely do that. Plains Drifter in Minnesota says miniature use led to battle system, Clash of Armies. I would say AD&D led to battle system because when you roll a random encounter and 168 goblins show up, sometimes it's a little bit more manageable to use something like battle system. I'm not arguing the point with you. I do agree with you, but I think, which order that goes in, I think could be up for debate. But I promise you, if I had been able to paint in 1989 like I'm able to paint now and had painted up these Terminator Marines, I could have sent them in. I could have sent pictures of them into GW White Dwarf and been featured every month. And these are not good. I just want to point that out. These are not good. A nerd's nerd. Hello. Hi. How are you? Take care, Rob Turner. We'll see you around. Exactly, a nerd's nerd. Whenever I feel bad about my painting, I just look at old magazines and suddenly you feel like a world-class artist. I think it was in an early issue of Dragon magazine. They had and it was tough to do. When your magazine, even after you have glossy pages, is largely in black and white, featuring minis is tough to do. But I remember them talking to somebody and it's like, so-and-so even recommends thinning paints somewhat before putting them on. Thinning paints? Well, that's just crazy talk. To the Terminator. Not that kind of Terminator, Michael. Yeah, exactly. Be Bob Ross. All right. Treat yourself nice when you're painting your miniatures. I think one of the worst things that could have ever happened to the miniature painting hobby was cool mini or not. One of the things I will tell you without hesitation is CMON. Guys, if you have friends who are getting into the tabletop RPG hobby and they want to paint miniatures, when their back is turned, search their devices to see if they've been on CMON. And if they come over to your house, block it on your Wi-Fi router. Nonsense, Orbital Air, you're here. Therefore, you have friends. But if you go to CMON and see what people rate like a 4, you will throw away your paints, your brushes, your miniatures in that order. Nobody should be worried about cool mini or not. Everybody should be thinking like Bob Ross. It's just a happy little accident. Maybe that goblin has a green coat now. You know, maybe his coat isn't meant to be brown, or maybe he just has a green patch on his coat because he tore his coat walking through the dungeon. That's okay. We can have a little splotch of green on his coat. But that's what you should be thinking about. Have fun when you use miniatures, but let me put a challenge out there. If there's anybody watching this video, if you're sitting there silently gritting your teeth because I keep saying miniatures are cool, try it. Surprise your players. Get a big pad of graph paper, draw out a dungeon room on it in pen or marker or whatever. Find some cheap minis on eBay and put them out there. And see how your battle unfolds. I bet if you keep exactly precisely the same narrative flow as a DM and you don't say, look at the table, guys, look at the miniatures, it will become second nature for players to silently put where their miniatures at into their thinking and planning, even if you don't tell them to. And it will go smoothly and effortlessly. Yeah, GW originally had like a whole line of talisman minis they'd sell you, pewter talisman minis. That's great, Plains Drifter. There actually was Grenadier sold a line called Poly S Floquill paints, and they had an entire line of D&D monster paints. As far as I know, nobody's ever done like a color equivalency chart, mostly because they're all dead. If you find a set of them, they are curios only. They are not usable as paints now, 50 years later. Cyrus, you say your volume is dropping? Uh-oh. How about now, guys? Is that better? Can you guys hear me now? Check, check. 1, 2. Can you guys hear me? There we go. Okay. I don't know what's going on with my Aston Element. That's like the second or third time when I've been streaming and it's been dying. So I'll have to look into that. I don't know if it's got a short in it or what. Anyway, so to move on, to continue with what we were saying, miniature's good. Miniature's good. And I think you guys should absolutely, positively be using them. Paint your Hero Quest figurines. The Chaos Warriors look great painted. Absolutely. But it's not so much talking about the painting as just the general use. So if we go back here, you know, we talk about scale. And I think we've covered everything. Well, you may find it convenient to actually use, you may not find it convenient to actually use such figures in floor pans to handle routine dungeon environment. Having sheets of squares for encounter area depiction will probably be quite helpful. Well, we have Dwarven Forge. And what's fun is if you go through Dragon Magazine, you can find ads back in the day for miniature terrain. There were companies that made miniature terrain. Some were cardstock with little plastic standees. Some were probably foam. Others still probably plaster. Where do I get inspiration for paint schemes? You know, it just, I listen to the miniature. If the person who I am painting the miniature for doesn't tell me how they want it painted, I just listen to the miniature. If I don't have a designated scheme, I knew how I wanted my Gene Stealers painted and how I wanted my Terminators painted. But I literally will just listen to the miniature and let it tell me how it wants to be painted. You think I'm kidding, and you think I'm, oh, it talks to me. When you get in the zone, it's It is literally a case of the miniature will almost speak to you about how it wants to be painted. TC says, Bill, you cannot use the helicopter for a campaign. Okay. When do you base black? Generally, if the monster is going to be dark skinned, I will prime black. I have some otherworld trolls over here that I primed black. I have, or maybe I primed them green even. I'm not sure. But generally speaking, character minis, depending, I will prime white or gray. But I will base paint stuff black periodically. I have a thief miniature that I absolutely love, that I believe I based black, but don't quote me on that. But, and this is important, guys, do not go bonkers with primer. A thin wash of primer is all you need. All you need is something for your 2 or 3 thin coats to hold on to. You don't want piles of primer on your mini. That's why I brush prime or airbrush prime. I don't rattle can prime anymore. In Florida's humidity, it opens up too many opportunities for orange peel. Whose speed paints do you use, Cal, if you don't mind me asking? How do I paint eyes? Thin line of white and a dot of black or a dot of color. I also paint the eyes first. Never wait till last to do the eyes. Paint the eyes first. If you paint the eyes last, when you screw them up, and you will, you have to be super careful to fix it. If you do the eyes first, if you screw them up, you can just simple green the thing and start over. Wheeling Dragon, how are you? Hello. Yeah, I did not have a good experience with Army Painter speed paints at all. Now, I like Army Painter paints, don't get me wrong. But Army Painter speed paints had such a re-wetting problem, I was frustrated to the point that I just couldn't use them. I love Vallejo paints. I'll have to try their Vallejo Express. Michael, a speed paint is a very thin, fast flowing and fast drying paint that tends to run off of high places and fill in low places in a gradient, so you get like an instant shade. Josh, re-wetting. Okay, when you are working with speed paints, or this can happen with ink washes, you lay down a layer of colors. Now, maybe that wasn't enough paint. When the paint dries, if you come back and you lay down the next layer, what can happen is re-wetting. And re-wetting means that the paint underneath the paint that you just laid down becomes wet, which, I mean, obviously that happens, right? It seems intuitive that you're making that paint wet again, but you don't want it soaked and viscous. And re-wetting is when you paint over the first layer and the second layer begins to run and blotch. And of course, it's not going to do it evenly. I have a, I don't know how well it would show up, but I have a Naga that happened to with her skin tone with speed paints, and she kind of killed speed paints for me. I'll show it to you guys real quick. Okay, here we go. You can see how I will show this to you guys. You can see how bad she re-wet in places, particularly on the serpent part of her body. That just, oh, that was so disappointing. And it had happened with a couple of other miniatures I painted, but she was the worst example. And I've kept her like that. I have kept her like that to when people ask, hey, you know, should I use speed paints? No, this is Army Painter Speed Paints did this. Yeah. That is the effects of re-wetting. And that is what now she's plastic, she's Reaper. I don't, you know, I think it cost me like $4.99 or something. And I'm a pretty good painter. I like to think I'm a pretty good painter. So yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment. Can I recommend a good basic set of paints? Reaper triads are fantastic. I love Reaper color triads. Now, unfortunately, they don't make inks anymore, but like a green triad, light green, middle green, forest green, or light, you know, jade green, grass green, pine green, and then green ink, it's like cheating. It's like a secret formula. Are the mini video? No. Well, when I get the 3D printing channel going, it's going to be its own separate thing. And there's going to be crafting stuff there. My focus is not, the focus on that channel, it's like I said last year when I was going to get it going then, is it's not just going to be 3D printing, because like there are 3D printing channels where they will get into the science of like, well, you know, the phenol in this resin is of a lighter molecular density than in this resin. And when we ran 200 photo exposure tests, I'm like, I am so glad you're doing that. That is not what my channel is about. My channel is about 3D printing for the tabletop. But like, I'm going to stop short of saying, and this monster has this many hit dice. I'm going to focus on the hardware and software and outcomes of 3D printing and tabletop crafting. All right. I won't go into that. I have an airbrush. I used it to base coat my Gene Stealers, and I absolutely loved it. I loved it. A lot of types of D&D crafting, Michael Mertig. I'm not sure I'm going to go into all types of D&D crafting, but a lot of types of D&D crafting. Which I hope you guys will subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will put that URL up here in just a second. Let's see. Let me see. I got to actually do this. Oh, right. I forgot that. Because there's already one out there. So there you go. If you want to check me out, if you want to subscribe to the channel, the new channel that's going to go live the next week or so, I'm going to warn you guys, you might not like it because I'm going to be talking about safety. I'm going to be talking about safety. First video out of the chute. I'm going to be talking about safety. But I'll be talking about all kinds of crafty stuff, leaning heavily into the 3D printing. Safety is incredibly important. I cannot, you know, do I use expensive brush? No, I buy cheap brushes. I buy cheap crap brushes. Once upon a time, I used to spend $7, $8, $9, $10 on a hobby brush, and they die just like cheap crap hobby store brushes. I can go to Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Joann's, and get or to my FLGS. Even my FLGS sells cheap sets of brushes. And I'll buy a cheap set of brushes and I'll use them until they're not good for anything but dry brushing. Thank you, Cyrus. Thank you very much. Thank you, Wheeling Dragon. One of the coolest tricks I've ever seen with an airbrush, and I don't know if I'd have a reason to do it, and I don't know if I'd do it right, but this guy did a really cool thing. He made a magic user that looked like orbital air. If you're just starting out, don't. I'm sorry, respectfully, I disagree with you. If you're just starting out, maybe you'll paint a dozen miniatures and then be like, that's it, I'm done. No, he cranked the air pressure down really low on his airbrush and put his finger over the nozzle, held the trigger down, and then moved his finger off the trigger, and it made it cough and splatter specks of white paint. And the character he had was wearing a navy blue cloak. He bought this miniature on eBay, and he wanted it to look like literally he was opening his cloak and there was like a void of stars inside the cloak. And like he just retouched it a little bit. And Archie says, can I just say something? Like, can I just get something off my chest? Is that okay? Oh, that depends, Archie. I hope it's appropriate, but let fly. We're pretty laid back around here. Unless it's about me, then keep it to yourself. I mean, my attitude on brushes really changed completely 100% when I saw Sam. Oh, I'm gonna have to look the gentleman's name up now. I feel terrible about this. Let's see. Sam Lenz, that's who it was. Sam Lenz. They talked to him about brushes. And Sam, they asked him, "Oh, how do you clean your brushes?" And he said, "I don't. $2 when I'm done." And he threw the brush in the trash. Sam Lenz has won so many freaking awards. It's not even funny. His painting is par excellence. I came this close to taking painting lessons from Sam, and I didn't have the money at the time, and he needed the money. And when I got the money, he didn't have any space. Archie says, this time of year is extremely difficult for me because my wife's passing is coming up on Sunday. So I've had hard go, but my content has been helping you through this very tough time. Archie, you're welcome, brother. You're welcome. All I can do is sit here on the far side of an internet connection from you and talk about the things I love. And if that brings you joy, if that helps you out, and if this community is someplace where you find a sense of belonging, then welcome. You know, I'm no qualified shrink. I'm no therapist, but I'm really glad that I'm touched, man. I'm touched. Now, one thing I do with my brushes, I will tell you, is, and I learned this from Stefan Pokorny. I have a set of natural Pokorny Paints brushes that I love, and they have held up incredibly well because I treat them this way. After you're done painting with your brushes, get a bar of ivory soap. Okay? Doodle your paints in the brush. Don't mash them down so that the bristles make them look like beaker. You're very welcome, Archie. But you scrub those, and what you do is, after you've given them a good scrub and a rinse, just paint the palm of your hand. Paint the palm of your hand or a paper towel. When you stop seeing color, any color at all, like, oh, that's a little faint gray, but I think it's good. No. When you are just brushing clear water, your brush is clean. Stop. Don't keep like trying to. And the way to restore your points is once you've got it done, lick them clean and twist them in your mouth. Your spit will act like conditioner. Now you can get Masters brush conditioner. Some people will use like actual hair conditioner, but your spit will do fine. God bless you, Archie. Thank you for stopping by. Yeah, I wish his terrain painting video was still up. I talked to him about that vid once, and I was like, yeah, I love that video. And he was like, I think I was on something when I was recording with those guys. And I was like, okay, dude. FMCS beat me to the punch. FMCS beat me to the punch. Yeah, you can heat water to near boiling, and nylon bristles. You can straighten out nylon bristles that way. It's very helpful. Don't lick. Yeah. Tritium paint. No. You shouldn't be doing that anyway, Cal. That's horrible. Ooh, that's good radium. But that is those are just some recommendations, guys. Yes, you should use minis. If you're out there again and you're not using minis for your D&D game, please try it once. Please try it once. Just grab some inexpensive minis off of eBay, metal or plastic. Draw your stuff up on a poster board. Set out Legos, toothpicks, popsicle sticks, whatever. I think you'll have a lot of fun. Your daughter has a question, and okay. Favorite dragon? Yes. Well, I have two favorites. For good dragons, metallic dragons, tell her I like the silver dragon, because a silver dragon will often interact with people by turning into a fair maiden. And for evil dragons, chromatic dragons, you have to go with a huge ancient red dragon. That horrid breath weapon, the treasure hoarding, the fact that they can be reasoned with even if they are chaotic evil. Those are my favorite dragons. Favorite fey creature? I am going to go with the sylph. The sylph. Let's see. Tell you all about the sylph. You can rewind to this point in the video. We're an hour and 28 minutes in if you want to make a note. I love how there's this option in Adobe Acrobat to read. Do you want an AI assistant to summarize this document for you? Adobe, bless your heart, I don't think it would understand the Monster Manual or any other book written by Gary Gygax, but all right. So let's talk about the sylph. So this is the stuff I love it when stuff just pops up on the show. And people are like, hey, what about X? And I can just jump in. So you tell her that I like the sylph. Sylphs are very beautiful creatures similar to nymphs. The sylphs, however, dwell primarily in aerial places. They are fond of flitting about, and it is not likely that they will be encountered near the place where they dwell. They sometimes befriend creatures of good alignment, aiding them in some way. A sylph has magical ability of 7th level, 4 first level spells, 3 second, 2 third, and 1 fourth, in addition to the abilities of invisibility at will and conjuring an air elemental once per week. They speak their own language and the common tongue. They are armor class 9. They fly at 36 inches, which is, you can tell her that means they fly at 360 yards a minute, or meters if you're in a country that uses meters instead of feet. They are only found in their lair 10% of the time. They have 10 to 40 gemstones and a selection of magic items to be found in their lairs. They do not attack, but they will summon an air elemental if they need to. They are exceptionally intelligent and neutral good, and as you can see, they are beautiful women. So there you go. You tell her that. You tell her that. So, do treants count as fae? Possibly. She's only 6. She doesn't know how evil Tiamat is. Well, maybe we should have a talk with her about Bahamut, the platinum dragon. Talk to her about Bahamut. I didn't have a comeback for your last comment. Oh, I missed it. Let me see. You want to say you don't count? Oh, the wheeling dragon. Yes, yes. The wheeling dragon is chaotic good. I did not count you. But yes, I do like the silver dragon. Of all the dragon encounters that my Monday night group has had, actually the larger number. Well, let me see. They have encountered greens and reds, whites, bronze, and brass dragons. Can one really call a Tiamat mini a mini? I have the aspect of Tiamat from the D&D minis. I don't know how many you may or may not consider that. Right. I mean, at 28 millimeters, she's still not small enough to be a or not large enough rather to be Tiamat. I don't think. I've never measured her from her tallest head to the tip of her tail. Well, you must also show her this. This is the silver dragon. Draco nobilis argentum. Very rare. Number appearing 1 to 4. Armor class -1. Move, they can walk at 90 feet along the ground or yards when outdoors. Or fly at 240 feet or yards when outdoors. Hit dice 9 to 11. Inlayer 55% of the time. Treasure types H and T, which is a lot of treasure. 3 attacks, a claw, and a bite. And then they have their breath weapon and possible spell use. They are lawful good. At their largest, 48 feet long. 75% chance of speaking, 75% chance of magic use, but only a 15% chance of sleeping. Silver dragons select mountain peaks, clouds, and similar locales in which to establish their abode. It is claimed that this dragon can be found in the home of the king of good dragons as well as behind other winds. Much as a gold dragon, these creatures are able to polymorph themselves to appear as an animal or a human, typically a kindly old man or fair damsel, if the latter. When in combat, a silver dragon is able to attack with claw and fang or use either of its 2 breath weapons, a cone of frost 8 inches long with a 3-inch base, or a cloud of paralyzing gas 5 feet long or 5 inches long by 4 inches wide by 2 inches high, which will take immediate effect upon all within it unless they save versus dragon's breath. Silver dragons who are able to use magic are able to employ a maximum of 10 spells. So there you go. Can dragons crossbreed? I suppose they might now. If you scroll down, we have this, the dragon. A weird cross between a brass dragon and a giant lion. So some brass dragon walks up to a giant lioness, puts on some loo rolls. You'll never find another love like mine. And then 9 months later, Boom. Fights with claws and fangs, and it has a horrible roar which causes weakness to all within 12 inches. They speak the language of brass dragons and sphinxes. Well, that makes sense. The lion then makes sense, probably rocked up to a female sphinx, or alternately a female dragon. Anyway, we don't need to go into specifics. Don't need to go into the specifics. The dragon in Shrek crossed with donkey. Absolutely. But then donkey is a unique fey creature, so... Damn it, I sent you out to slay the dragon. Hey, James, don't be sending him over to other channels. You stay right here, sir. I'm kidding. I'm teasing. I am teasing. Dungeon Minister has a fantastic channel. Everybody's animal husbandry skill. Well, that's where it started, with some animal husbandry and wifery. No, Dungeon Minister is awesome, and you should absolutely subscribe to his channel. Pastel Fox, that's how we ended up with Dragones in the first place. Hey-o! Bazinga! Oh, my goodness. Must be getting a little bit tired. The party in my Monday Night Greyhawk game befriended a Gynosphinx who was dwelling in a jungle savanna area on one level of my Castle Greyhawk dungeon. And she decided to go with them, and has been spending some time with them. She does not go out and adventure. No, darlings, I do not go out to adventure. I will stay here in the castle and wait for you to return with wonderful things that I will help you identify. Kid bashing mini? Absolutely. Absolutely. Somewhere over on my shelf of shame, I have a gray mouser that I made. So, Reaper made basically they made Fawford and Gray Mouser, and they couldn't call them that, but they're right next to each other in the catalog as far as numbers. And they look, I think one was Eli Quicknight and the other is Fafnir. They look like Fawford and Gray Mouser, except the Gray Mouser looking mini just kind of had a hand like that, and then another hand on a dagger. I mean, a hand like that that's just held out. I'm like, right. I bought a weapons mini pack, drilled out his fist, stuck a sword in there. I got a Fawford and Gray Mouser mini set. The Mercury Dragons. I don't remember that much about them, Archie, but I knew that they were the champions because they kept on fighting to the end. Hey, Darth Brooks, thank you for stopping by. I know Darth is camping out for Gamma World tickets for tomorrow night, guys. When the gates open, like he's going to gather up his sleeping bag and run into the venue so he can be first front row to watch Gamma World. Which is not a safe place to be because you might catch some radiation. No, I just kind of stick with the dragons that are given in the monster manual. And I'm not saying like if Gary didn't write it, I don't want it. That's because Gary had the Oriental dragons, and then he had a bunch of weird dragons in Monster Manual too. I just really the 8 kinds that are in the monster. Let me make sure it's 1, 2, 3. Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The 10. And that's not even to count dragon turtles, dragons, wyverns, pseudo dragons. We have plenty of dragons in this book. Is it? No, it's not, Michael. But yeah, Dragon Magazine went kind of bonkers and had a lot of dragons in it. Oh, and fire lizards. The giant lizards that are fire. Let me. Oh, come on. Lizard, fire lizard. Where's the focus? There it is. So we have fire lizards. These reptiles may be an ancestral dragon type or an offshoot of a common ancestor. In any case, these creatures resemble red dragons, are sometimes called false dragons, and the latter seem to avoid confrontation with fire lizards, are slow-moving, and often sleep for long periods. They're found in subterranean layers, coming forth every fortnight or so to hunt. Shiny things attract them. Fire lizards collect metals and gems in their den. There's a 10% chance that the lair will contain 1 to 4 eggs, but the fire lizard does not otherwise care for its young, which depart after hatching. And they have a breath weapon of 2 to 12 hit points. Fire 1 to 6 if saving throws made. Fire-based attacks don't harm them. They're gray with mottlings of red-brown on the back and reddish undersides. And so on and etc. So yeah, we have those two. But anyhow, so does anyone have any final thoughts on dragons, fey creatures, miniatures, painting, anything like that? Anything like that? What am I using right now? It is the premium edition PDF of the Monster Manual. You can get that on Drive-Thru RPG. It was re-typeset in 2014, so it is crystal clear and a joy to use. Highly recommend. No, the depleted uranium dragons are the most ruthless kind. They're typically found making a BERT sound. If you know, you know. But anyhow, I think that's going to about do it for me, guys. It has been a joy talking to you all. Do I use a magnifier? Absolutely. I use my reading glasses and I use a 2-power Mag Eyes lens. You can find Mag Eyes on Amazon. They're awesome. Josh Butler, you're exactly right. Minis are good. 28 millimeter was the default size. Dragons are cool. So, yes, I wash my miniatures before painting them. I also use a brass automotive brush to very gently comb the miniatures. Very gently. To scrub them. Just literally lightly brush them in the direction of textures. So, I will see you guys tomorrow night. We are playing Gamma World. Then I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And the closing shout out, Archie, goes to you. God be with you, my friend, and your daughter. And you tell her what I said. Silver dragons and sylphs for the win. Oh, and huge ancient red dragons. Peace to you all. And remember, when you're painting your Owlbear minis, be careful. They are very picky about their color schemes. Peace. Love you all. Good night.
Have you seen my Owlbear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my Owlbear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. ride a crooked horse without a saddle, way off course. Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to